In this video, we'll be talking about changing the subject of the formula. And it's one of those very important topics that you cannot do without in mathematics. Every time you'll be faced with equations where you don't know one of the properties of the equation and you have to make that the subject of the formula. So let's start with something very simple. Let's say we have an equation 6 plus x is equal to 10. So x is the unknown here, and we want to make x the subject of the formula. So what must we add to 6 to get 10? Now, the idea of making something an equation, a subject of the formula, is that we want to leave the unknown alone on one side of the equation and move every other thing to the other side of the equation. So in this case, how do we get rid of the 6 on this side of the equation? Now, if we have plus 6 here, the only way to make this 0 is to subtract 6 from this side of the equation. So 6 minus 6 becomes 0, and x is left alone. So if we have minus 6 on this side. But the thing is, this is an equation, which means that whatever we do to one side of the equation has to be done to the other side of the equation as well. So if we subtract 6 from the left-hand side, we have to subtract 6 from the other side as well. So if we solve this, plus 6 minus 6 results in 0, leaving x on this side of the equation alone. And then 10 minus 6 results in 4. And if you plug 4 into this equation, you would notice that 6 plus 4 gives you 10. What if your equation is x minus 6 equals 10? Now don't forget, we're trying to make x the subject of a formula, and the aim is to leave x on one side of the equation alone. So how do we get rid of this minus 6? Now, in the previous case, it was plus 6, so we had to subtract 6 to get rid of the 6. But in this case, this is minus 6. And to get rid of this 6, we have to add 6 to this side of the equation. So if we add 6 to this side of the equation, we also have to add 6 to the right side of the equation. And minus 6 plus 6 cancels out, and x is left on this side of the equation alone. And 10 plus 6 results in 16. And we know that 16, if x is 16, 16 minus 6 would result in 10. What if our equation was 6 plus 2x equals 10? Now don't forget, we're trying to make x the subject of the formula, leaving x on the left-hand side of the equation alone. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of this 6. And we know that to get rid of this 6, we have to subtract 6 from both sides of the equation. So if we do that, we have 6 minus 6, 10 minus 6. And this cancels out, 6 plus 6 minus 6 cancels out. And we're left with 2x on this side of the equation. 10 minus 6 becomes 4. But we still have 2 with x on this side, and we need to get rid of the 2 to leave x alone. Now if we have 2 multiplied by x, we have to divide this side by 2 to get rid of this 2. Consequently, we also have to divide the other side by 2 as well. So 2 divided by 2 will leave us with x alone on this side, and 4 divided by 2 leaves us with 2. So x is equal to 2. And if we plug in 2 into this place, you would realize that 2 plus 2 multiplied by 2 is equal to 4, and 4 plus 6 is equal to 10. What if the equation was 6 plus x over 2 is equal to 10? Now we know that the first thing we have to do is get rid of the 6, and to do that, we subtract 6 from both sides of the equation. So plus 6 minus 6 results in 0, leaving us with x over 2 on this side alone. And 10 minus 6 is equal to 4. Now we need to get rid of this 2 here, which is a division, x divided by 2. And to do that, we have to multiply this by 2 to get rid of this 2. And by so doing, we also have to multiply the other side by 2 as well. So 2 cancels out 2 to leave us with x alone, and 4 multiplied by 2 is equal to 8. So x is equal to 8. And if you plug that into your equation here, you would realize that 8 over 2 is equal to 4, and 6 plus 4 is equal to 10. So that's how we make an unknown the subject of the formula. The aim is to isolate the unknown to be by itself on one side of the equation. So if we have c equals 2 pi r, and we are requested to make r the subject of the formula. Now here we have r multiplied by 2 pi, and we need to leave r on this side of the equation by itself. So the way we can do that is to divide both sides of the equation by 2 pi. Now if we do that, 2 pi cancels out 2 pi, and here we're left with c over 2 pi equals r, and that is our answer. The next question says y equals mx plus c, and we're requested to make x the subject of the formula. Now to do this, the first thing we need to do is get rid of the c. Now to do that, we need to subtract c from both sides of the equation. So if we do minus c here and minus c here, now plus c cancels out minus c to give us mx on this side, and this becomes y minus c. But we're still left with an m on this side. Now to get rid of the m, we divide this side by m and also divide this side by m. Now m cancels out m to leave us with x. So our final answer is y minus c over m is equal to x. X has been made the subject of the formula. So what if we have the formula for voltage, V equals IR, and we've been asked to make I the subject of the formula? Now in this case, I is multiplied by R. So if we want to get rid of the R here, we simply divide by R. And R will cancel out R to make I alone on this side of the equation. So I equals V divided by R. The next question is the formula for acceleration. So if we have A equals V minus U divided by T, and we've been requested to make U the subject of the formula here. Now the first thing we need to do is get rid of the T. And we can get rid of the T by multiplying both sides by T. So if we multiply this side by T and this side by T, T cancels out T, and we're left with AT equals V minus U. To get rid of these V, we can subtract V from both sides of the equation. So if we have minus V minus V, so this becomes AT minus V. Now V cancels out, plus V minus V cancels out, and we're left with minus U. But even though we'll have only U on this side of the equation, there's a minus sign here. And what we aim to do is to make U the subject of the formula, not minus U. So this essentially stands for minus 1U. So what we need to do to get rid of this one is to divide both sides by minus 1. And if we do that, what we have is we have minus 1 minus 1. So this minus cancels out this minus to leave U on this side alone. And what we have here essentially is minus AT minus V. And this becomes, if we spread this minus over the constituents of this bracket, we have minus AT minus times minus becomes plus V, which is the same as U equals V plus AT. What if we have an equation containing a bracket such as x is equal to 2 over 3 multiplied by P plus Q, and we're requested to make P the subject of the formula? Now there are certain cases where you may need to expand the bracket, but this is not one of them, because all we need to do is get rid of 2 over 3, and then the bracket automatically becomes open. So there is no need to expand this to complicate our equation. Now to do that, when we have a fraction, when we need to get rid of a fraction to the other side of the equation, all we need to do is multiply both sides of the equation by the reciprocal of this fraction. So if we multiply both sides of the equation by 3 over 2, we will get rid of this fraction. So if we do that, we have 3 over 2 multiplied by x and 3 over 2. So 3 cancels out 3 and 2 cancels out 2. And we have 3x over 2 equals p plus q. Now to get rid of q, we subtract q from both sides. And this will leave us with 3x over 2 minus q, plus q cancels out minus q to give us p. So this is our final answer. What if we have an equation such as this, which is x plus d over 2 equals x plus a over 3? Now, if we have an equation such as this where both sides have a denominator, the best thing to do is to multiply each side with the denominator of the other side. So if we cross multiply here, what we'll have is equal to 3 multiplying x plus d. And we have 2 multiplying x plus a. Now, unlike the previous bracket where we had only p in one of the brackets and we did not really need to expand, in this case, we need to expand to be able to combine our x's. So if we expand this bracket, we'll have 3x, 3 multiplied by x, plus 3 multiplied by d, 3d, equals 2 multiplied by x is equal to 2x, plus 2 multiplied by a is equal to 2a. So now we can collect like terms, moving x to one part of the equation and moving the other terms to the other side of the equation. Now to move this 2x to the other side of the equation, we have to subtract minus 2x from both sides of the equation. So if we do that, we have minus 2x minus 2x. And that will result in 3x minus 2x is equal to x plus 3d equals plus 2x cancels out minus 2x to leave us with 2a. Now, well, we have x plus 3d on this side and we need to move the 3d away to the other side of the equation. So to do that, we simply subtract 3d from each side of the equation. And that will ultimately result in x, 3d plus 3d cancels out minus 3d, and we have 2a minus 3d. And that's our final answer. And so we've made x the subject of the formula. Okay, so if we have the area of a circle, which is a equals pi r squared, and we want to make r the subject of the formula. So in this case, the first thing we need to do is get rid of the pi. And to get rid of the pi, we need to divide both sides by pi. So pi cancels out pi, and we're left with a over pi equals r squared. Now the square is the only thing left with r here. So how do we get rid of the square? Now to do that, we need to look for the square root of r squared. Now the square root cancels out the square, and so we also need to look for the square root of the other side as well. So if the square root cancels out the square, we're left with r is equal to the square root of a over pi. And that's how you deal with squares and square roots. When you have the square, you look for the square root of both sides, and if what you have is the square root and you're trying to get rid of the square root, you look for the square of both sides. So this is the formula for the period of a simple harmonic motion. And if we are requested to make g the subject of the formula, that's t equals 2 pi multiplied by the square root of L over G. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of 2 pi. We're trying to leave G on this subject, on this side of the equation alone. So to get rid of 2 pi, we divide both sides by 2 pi. So 2 pi cancels out 2 pi, and we're left with t. We're left with t over 2 pi equals the square root of L over G. Now to get rid of the square roots, we have to square everything here. And by so doing, we need to square the other side as well. So this becomes t over 2 pi all squared. And the square cancels out the square root here to leave us with L over G. And now to make G the subject of the formula, I would suggest that we multiply both sides by G. Now if we do that, we have we'll have G multiplied by, so G cancels out G, and we have G t over 2 pi squared equals L. But the reason we had to do that was because our G is in the denominator here, but we're not trying to make 1 over G the subject of the formula. We're trying to make G the subject of the formula. So now that we've brought G up to the numerator level, we have to get rid of t over 2 pi squared. And to do that, we divide both sides by this entire entity here. So if we divide both sides by t over 2 pi squared, this cancels out this, and we're left with G equals L over t over 2 pi squared. Now, so what we have is G equals L over t over 2 pi squared. Now this is the same as L over, we can explicitly expand this to be t squared over, since we're squaring everything, 2 squared is 4 and this is pi squared. Now you know that this is the same as writing this as 4 pi squared L over t squared. All we've done is brought 4 pi to the level of numerator here, because if you're not conversant with our L, this is the same as saying L divided by t squared over 4 pi squared. And we know that this is the same as saying L multiplied by 4 pi squared over t squared. So this is what you have here. So ultimately, G equals 4 pi squared L over t squared. And that's our final answer. The next equation says y equals xt plus 2at, and we're trying to make t the subject of the formula. Now, normally we would say we've moved one of the components or one of the terms to the other side. But in this case, you would notice that t is a part of both components on this side of the equation. Now, what we do in this equation is to factorize this side of the equation so that what left is our common factor and we're left with the other components that are not t's. So if we to do that, we have y equals, t is our common factor here, which is what we're factorizing out. Now to factorize this side, we have xt divided by t. So t cancels out t to leave us with x. So x is left here. And we have 2at over t. So t cancels out t and we're left with 2a on this side of the equation. Oh, excuse me. We're left with 2a on this side of the equation. So now we can divide both sides by x plus 2a to get rid of this bracket. So if we divide both sides by x plus 2a, x plus 2a cancels out x plus 2a, and our final equation for t is y over x plus 2a. That's our final answer. This is the next question, and we're trying to make d the subject of the formula. So the first thing we need to do is to get rid of half multiplied by n. And as we've said before, to get rid of a fraction, all we need to do is multiply both sides by the inverse of that fraction. Now, the inverse of 1 over 2 is simply 2, because 2 over 1 is just simply 2. So if we do that, we would get 2s equals, multiplying this side by 2, multiplying this side by 2. So 2s becomes, 2 cancels out 2, and we're left with n 2a plus n minus 1d. Now we need to get rid of n. To get rid of n, we simply divide both sides by n. So n cancels out n, and we have 2s over n equals 2a plus n minus 1 into d. So the next thing is to get rid of 2a. And to do that, we only need to subtract 2a from both sides. So if we subtract 2a from this side and from this side, 2 minus 2a cancels out the plus 2a here. So this is equal to 2s over n minus 2a equals n minus 1d. Now to isolate d on this side alone, we need to divide both sides by n minus 1. And that's the same as multiplying it by n minus 1 and multiplying everything here by n minus 1. So n minus 1 cancels out n minus 1, and we're left with d equals 2s over n minus 2a multiplied by n minus 1. And that is our final answer. And that's how far we'll come with change of subject or formula. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please subscribe, share the video, tell someone about the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.